I sat in the conference room listening to my brother accept the Innovator of the Year award for a product I had designed, coded, and brought to market entirely by myself. He stood at the podium in his expensive suit, thanking his incredible team and talking about his vision and leadership while venture capitalists and tech journalists hung on his every word. This was the culmination of 10 years. 10 years of watching him take credit for my work. 10 years of staying silent while he built an empire on my ideas. 10 years of being introduced as the guy who handles the technical stuff while he played CEO. Then someone in the audience asked the one question I'd been waiting a decade to hear. Michael, can you walk us through the actual coding architecture that makes this platform so revolutionary? I watched my brother's face freeze. Watched him fumble for words he didn't have. Watched him try to deflect with business jargon while a room full of engineers waited for technical specifics he couldn't provide. And for the first time in 10 years, I decided to stop being silent. I stood up from my seat in the back of the room. I can answer that question, I said quietly. Since I'm the one who actually built it. The room went silent. Every head turned toward me. Michael's face went white. And with one sentence, 10 years of carefully constructed lies began to crumble. Let me take you back to where this all started. My name is James. I'm 38 years old now, but this story begins when I was 26. I'd just finished my master's degree in computer science and was working as a software engineer at a mid-sized tech company. I was good at what I did. Really good. I could see solutions to problems that other engineers missed. I could write elegant code that was both powerful and efficient. But I was quiet, introverted, more comfortable with computers than people. My brother Michael was the opposite. 2 years older, charismatic, confident, always the center of attention. He'd gotten an MBA and was working in business development at a startup that had recently failed. He was between jobs, living in my apartment temporarily, talking big about his next move. One night, I made the mistake that would define the next decade of my life. I showed him something I'd been working on in my spare time. It was a platform for streamlining supply chain management using AI to predict disruptions and automatically reroute shipments. I'd been building it for 8 months, working nights and weekends, and it was nearly functional. I was proud of it. Excited about it. And I wanted to share it with someone. Michael's eyes lit up as I walked him through the demo. This is incredible, he kept saying. This could be huge. This could be worth millions. I laughed it off. It was just a side project. I wasn't even sure what I'd do with it. You should patent this, Michael said. You should turn this into a real company. I don't know anything about running a company, I admitted. I'm an engineer, not a businessman. That's when Michael made his pitch. Let me handle the business side. You keep building and improving the tech. We'll be partners. 50-50. I'll handle investors, clients, all the stuff you hate. You just focus on what you're good at. We'll do this together. It made sense at the time. Michael knew how to talk to people, how to sell, how to network. I knew how to build. Together, we could actually make something real out of my project. We shook hands on it that night. Partners. Brothers. 50-50. The first year was a blur. I refined the platform, added features, fixed bugs, made it more robust. Michael worked his network, pitched to investors, set up meetings. He was good at it. Really good. Within 6 months, we had seed funding. Within a year, we had our first major client. But slowly, subtly, things began to shift. Michael started introducing himself as the founder. My company, he'd say. My platform. When investors asked technical questions, he'd defer to me with James handles the technical implementation of my vision. Like I was just the guy who executed his ideas. I noticed it but didn't say anything. I told myself it was just positioning. Investors wanted to back a CEO who seemed in control. It was strategy, not dishonesty. And besides, we were partners. The equity was 50-50. What did titles matter? Then came the first article about our company. A tech publication did a profile on Michael, calling him a visionary entrepreneur and the mind behind the revolutionary platform. I was mentioned once, in passing, as part of the technical team. I brought it to Michael's attention. This article makes it sound like you built the platform yourself. He waved it off. You know how journalists are. They simplify everything. Don't worry about it. You and I know the truth. That's what matters. I let it go. But it kept happening. Article after article, interview after interview, Michael was the genius founder and I was, at best, a talented employee. At worst, I wasn't mentioned at all. The company grew. More funding rounds. More clients. More press. And with each milestone, Michael's story became more elaborate. He'd talk about the late nights he spent developing the initial concept. The breakthrough moment when he realized how AI could revolutionize supply chain management. The challenges he'd overcome in building the algorithm. He was describing my work. My late nights. My breakthroughs. My algorithm. But the way he told it, he was the creator and I was the guy who helped him code it. I confronted him about it during our second year. Michael, you're taking credit for work I did. You need to set the record straight. He looked genuinely confused. I'm not taking credit, James. I always mention you. I always say we and the team. But someone has to be the face of the company. Investors don't want to back a tech guy who can barely make eye contact in meetings. They want to back a leader. I'm protecting our investment. Our investment? You didn't invest anything. I built this entire platform myself. And I built the company around your platform, he shot back. You think that code matters without clients? Without funding? Without someone who knows how to talk to the people who write the checks? We're partners, James. Different roles, equal importance. I backed down. Because he had a point, didn't he? The platform was useless without the business infrastructure he'd built. And we were still 50-50 partners. I was making money. Good money. What did it matter who got the public credit? That's what I told myself, anyway. By year 3, Michael had completely rewritten history. In his version of events, he'd come up with the concept for the platform and then brought on a technical team to build it. I wasn't even a co-founder anymore in the public narrative. I was the first employee. The lead engineer. A key member of the team. But not the creator. Our parents believed Michael's version. Friends from college would congratulate him on his brilliant invention. Industry publications would praise his innovation. And I would sit in my office, writing the code that made everything work, saying nothing. Why did I stay silent? I've asked myself that question 1,000 times. Part of it was conflict avoidance. I hated confrontation, hated drama. Part of it was doubt. Maybe Michael was right. Maybe investors did need a charismatic CEO more than they needed to know who actually wrote the code. Part of it was fear. If I made waves, if I demanded public recognition, would it destroy the company we'd built? Would it destroy my relationship with my brother? And part of it, honestly, was that I was making excellent money and doing work I loved. As long as the equity split stayed 50-50, did the rest really matter? Year 4 brought our Series B funding. $50 million. Michael was on the cover of business magazines. He gave a TED Talk about innovation and entrepreneurship. He was invited to speak at conferences. And in every speech, every interview, every article, he was the brilliant mind who'd revolutionized supply chain management. I was barely mentioned anymore. When I was, it was as one of our talented engineers or a key member of the technical team. No name. No credit. Just a faceless cog in Michael's machine. I watched him accept awards for innovation, for entrepreneurship, for technical achievement. Awards for work I had done. And I said nothing. The breaking point should have come in year 5, when Michael hired a new CTO. Someone to lead the technical team, he said. Someone with management experience. What he meant was someone to manage me. To oversee the platform I had built from scratch. The new CTO, Derek, was competent enough. But he didn't understand the platform the way I did. Couldn't. He hadn't built it from the ground up, hadn't made every architectural decision, hadn't debugged every issue. Within weeks, he was taking credit for my ongoing work, presenting my solutions to problems as his own innovations. Now there were 2 people between me and recognition for my work. Michael took credit for the original creation. Derek took credit for the ongoing development. And I was just the senior engineer who executed the technical vision. I should have quit. Should have walked away. Should have blown the whistle on the whole charade. But I was paralyzed by the same factors that had kept me silent for 5 years. Fear of conflict. Fear of losing my equity. Fear of being labeled difficult or bitter. And a diminishing hope that eventually, somehow, the truth would come out on its own. Years 6, 7, 8, and 9 blurred together. The company continued to grow. More funding. More clients. More accolades for Michael. I became increasingly invisible. Some new employees didn't even know I'd been there from the beginning. To them, I was just another engineer on the team. My parents would ask when I was going to do something big like Michael. Friends from college would say how proud I must be to work for my brother's company. Former classmates would reach out on LinkedIn asking if I could introduce them to the genius founder of our platform. Every time, I smiled and nodded and stayed silent. 10 years of watching someone else take credit for my life's work. 10 years of being erased from my own story. The end of year 9 brought the acquisition offer. A major tech conglomerate wanted to buy our company for $800 million. Michael would walk away with $400 million. So would I, thanks to our 50-50 equity split. It was life-changing money. But the acquisition came with a press tour. Interviews. Conference appearances. A big public announcement. And the narrative was set. Michael, the visionary founder, had built a revolutionary platform and was now cashing out in spectacular fashion. The night before the big press conference, I sat in my apartment looking at the speech Michael had sent me to review. In it, he thanked his incredible team for helping bring his vision to life. He talked about the moment he'd realized AI could transform supply chain management. He described the early days of his company and the challenges he'd overcome. My name appeared once. In a list of 20 employees he was thanking. Not as a co-founder. Not as a partner. Not as the actual creator of the technology. Just another name in the credits. Something inside me finally broke. I'd stayed silent for 10 years. I'd told myself it was pragmatic, strategic, noble even. That being the quiet genius was somehow more dignified than demanding recognition. That the work mattered more than the credit. That the money would be enough. But sitting there, reading my brother's lies, I realized I'd let him steal more than credit. He'd stolen my story. My legacy. My identity. And if I stayed silent through this acquisition, that theft would be permanent. History would record Michael as the innovator, the creator, the mind behind the platform. And I would be a footnote. The press conference was held at a luxury hotel, packed with journalists, investors, and industry leaders. Michael stood at the podium looking every bit the successful tech CEO. Confident. Polished. Ready to tell the story he'd spent 10 years crafting. He spoke for 20 minutes about his journey. His vision. His company. His platform. The audience ate it up. When he finished, the moderator opened the floor for questions. That's when an engineer from a tech publication asked the question that changed everything. Michael, can you walk us through the actual coding architecture that makes this platform so revolutionary? Specifically, how did you solve the latency issues with real-time AI predictions? I watched my brother's face. Watched him realize he couldn't answer. Couldn't even begin to answer. Because he'd never written a line of code in his life. He'd never solved the latency issue because he'd never encountered it. I had. I'd spent 6 months working out that particular problem. Michael tried to deflect. Well, you know, the technical specifications are proprietary, and quite frankly, the business applications are what really matter. I'm asking about the architecture, the journalist pressed. The machine learning model. How did you train it? What datasets did you use? What was your approach to the prediction algorithm? Michael was floundering. Other engineers in the audience were leaning forward, interested in the answer. This was the question that would expose him. And he knew it. That's when I stood up. I can answer that question, I said. My voice was quiet, but in the silence of the room, it carried. Since I'm the one who actually built it. Every head turned. Michael's face went from red to white. The moderator looked confused. I'm sorry, she said. You are? James Mitchell, I said, walking toward the front of the room. I'm Michael's brother. And I'm the person who designed, coded, and built every aspect of this platform. From the initial concept 10 years ago to the current version running today. You could hear a pin drop. That's not, Michael started, but I cut him off. The latency issue was solved using a hybrid approach, I said, addressing the journalist directly. We use edge computing for the initial data processing, which reduces the round-trip time to the central AI model. The prediction algorithm is based on a modified LSTM neural network trained on 10 years of supply chain disruption data from 17 different industries. We achieved real-time predictions by implementing a rolling prediction model that updates every 30 seconds rather than recalculating from scratch. The journalist was typing furiously. Other engineers in the room were nodding. This was the level of detail they'd been looking for. Detail that only the actual architect of the system could provide. I turned to face Michael. You want to tell them about the 3 months we spent debugging the database synchronization issue? Or should I? Because you weren't there. You've never been there for any of the actual building of this platform. James, not here, Michael said through gritted teeth. We can discuss this privately. We've been discussing it privately for 10 years, I said. You've spent a decade telling everyone this was your creation. I looked out at the stunned audience. 10 years ago, I showed my brother a platform I'd built in my spare time. He convinced me to turn it into a company together. Partners. 50-50. I would build the tech, he would handle the business. That was the deal. But somewhere along the way, he stopped being my partner and started being the sole founder. He stopped referring to it as our platform and started calling it his vision. He took credit for work he didn't do, for solutions he didn't create, for innovations he didn't design. And I stayed silent. Because I told myself the equity split was enough. That the money was enough. That credit didn't matter. I turned back to Michael. But it does matter. Because this platform isn't just code. It's my life's work. It's thousands of hours of problem-solving and innovation and dedication. And I'm not going to stand here and let you accept one more award, one more congratulations, one more accolade for something you didn't create. The room erupted. Journalists were shouting questions. The moderator was trying to regain control. The acquiring company's representatives were on their phones, clearly alarmed. And Michael was standing at the podium, exposed and speechless. What followed was chaos. The acquisition was put on hold pending an investigation. Journalists started digging into the company's history, interviewing early employees, looking at old emails and documents. The truth came out in pieces. Former employees confirmed that I'd been there from day one, that I'd built the original platform, that Michael's technical knowledge was superficial at best. Email chains showed me solving complex problems while Michael handled business meetings. Code repositories clearly showed my name on virtually every commit for the first 3 years. The tech community was outraged. Industry publications ran stories about founder fraud and stolen credit. Michael's reputation collapsed overnight. The TED Talk was removed. Magazine covers were recalled. Conference invitations were rescinded. The acquiring company renegotiated the deal. They wanted assurance that the person who actually built the platform would stay on. They wanted to acquire the technology and the mind behind it, not just the business structure. The new offer was contingent on my involvement. Michael and I had exactly one conversation after the press conference. He came to my apartment, angry and desperate. "You destroyed everything," he said. "Do you understand that?" "Everything we built." "Everything I built," I corrected. "And you destroyed it yourself the moment you started lying about who created it. I made you rich. Without me, that platform would still be sitting on your laptop going nowhere. I built the company. I found the funding. I landed the clients. And you could have done all of that while telling the truth," I said. "You could have been the CEO who found the technical genius and built a company around his innovation. That would have been impressive. Instead, you chose to pretend you were the technical genius. You chose to erase me from the story." "So what happens now?" he asked. "Now the world knows the truth," I said. "Now I get credit for my work. And now you deal with the consequences of 10 years of lies." The acquisition went through 3 months later at a reduced price. The acquiring company insisted on a clear public record of who created the platform. I was named Chief Technology Officer and given significant equity in the combined company. Michael was bought out entirely and left the company. Our relationship didn't survive. How could it? He'd spent 10 years systematically erasing my contributions and taking credit for my work. That's not a misunderstanding or a difference in perspective. That's deliberate, sustained betrayal. Our parents struggled to understand. They'd believed Michael's version of events for so long that accepting the truth meant admitting they'd praised the wrong son for a decade. Some family members still think I sabotaged Michael out of jealousy. Others avoid the topic entirely. But I don't regret speaking up. I regret waiting 10 years to do it. Looking back, I understand why I stayed silent for so long. Fear of conflict. Undervaluing my own contributions. Believing that credit didn't matter as long as the work was getting done. But silence in the face of injustice isn't noble. It's complicity in your own erasure. I learned that your work won't speak for itself. Code doesn't automatically credit its creator. Innovation doesn't come with a signature. If you don't advocate for yourself, if you don't claim your contributions, someone else will claim them for you. I also learned that family relationships built on lies aren't worth preserving. Michael and I aren't brothers anymore in any meaningful sense. We share DNA and a childhood, but he chose his image over our relationship. He chose credit over integrity. That's not someone I want in my life, regardless of shared genetics. The aftermath wasn't all negative. Speaking the truth, finally, was liberating. I started doing interviews, giving talks, writing about my actual role in creating the platform. The tech community welcomed me. I got to tell my story in my own words. I got to be visible in a way I'd never allowed myself to be before. And I met people who'd gone through similar experiences. Engineers whose business partners had taken credit. Creators whose collaborators had stolen attribution. Innovators who'd been erased from their own stories. We weren't alone. And speaking up gave others permission to do the same. It's been 3 years since that press conference. I'm 41 now, still working in tech, still building. But now when I create something, my name is on it from day one. When I solve a problem, I take credit. When I innovate, I claim it. I don't hide behind others anymore. Michael reached out once, about a year ago, through a lawyer. He wanted me to sign a statement saying he'd been a collaborative partner in creating the platform. Wanted to rehabilitate his reputation. I declined. The truth is the truth. He can live with it like I had to live with his lies. People sometimes ask if one sentence was really worth destroying a company, a relationship, a decade of work. But I didn't destroy anything. I told the truth. If the truth destroyed those things, they were built on an unsustainable foundation. That one sentence, I can answer that question, since I'm the one who actually built it, didn't change everything. It revealed everything. The change had already happened over 10 years of lies and stolen credit. I just stopped pretending otherwise. I think about the James from 10 years ago, excited to show his brother a project he'd built, trusting enough to make a handshake deal, naive enough to believe credit didn't matter. I wish I could tell him to protect his work. To put everything in writing. To speak up the first time Michael took undeserved credit instead of waiting for the 10th, the 100th, the 1000th time. But I can't change the past. I can only control how I move forward. And I move forward now with the knowledge that silence isn't peaceful, it's just slow erasure. That being humble about your work is different from letting others steal it. That the truth, even delivered late, is better than a comfortable lie. I stayed silent for 10 years. Then one sentence changed everything. Not because the sentence was magic, but because the truth, once spoken, can't be unspoken. And sometimes the truth is the only thing that can set you free.